Hello guys, my name is Jack Spartan and today I got a Wargame AirLand battle video to show you. I'm going to be starting to commentate battles that I've already done, and the reason I'm going to do this is because it's more of like a, for entertainment purposes, obviously for people who view my channel, but also for me to, get some dialogue going with some other people who play this game. There's obviously people who are better than me at this game at this point, but just learn from my mistakes and show you what I could have done better, what went right, and so on and so forth. And for this, I'm doing a 4v4, and we're playing on Stavanger, I believe was what it's called. But I'm playing with Kipper in 7, Chief in War, and Dr. Stone. As the Pact, I'm running my Soviet Invasion Force deck, which is basically a USSR deck with various types of units. I don't have any units in the vehicle category, but I have units in every other category that there is, and you'll see what those are pretty soon. I'm also playing, for NATO, we're going against Sanchez, Rakan, LOL Master Chef, and CTS Tony Varon. I'm going to go ahead and speed up so you can see all the units being placed down as soon as I hit the play button. And here, we'll limit to my perspective for now. I set up a couple beacons here. I was saying I'm going to take this spot and go for this, but that really isn't how it went. What it really, well, you'll see that in a little bit, but these were basically where I said I would send my CVs initially. Let's get to the point where it actually starts. Okay. So, my plan of attack, I didn't have an extra CV to spare because none of my other players or my teammates were gonna keep theirs in our main base at Anna, but I had that marked. But my original plan was I probably should go over my units before we go in here. I have a BRDM2U for my CV. I have a couple 2K22 Tunguskas. I have an MI8, an MI9 for recon, and of course some Urals for cargo. And I have the MI8 TVs for my PT Contours, I believe, were my units that are in there. But you can't see them. And so basically my plan was to send my Contours, which has powerful rockets, up into this area right here, or actually even into the town. My original plan was to go into the town and to secure a foothold, because if we go to neutral perspective, the enemy would be heading this way. I was pretty sure my plan was to stop their advance, but by the time I start heading that way, I noticed they captured it. And I didn't want to risk losing my contour, so I had secured this area initially, and I had decided to land one of my squads of contours on the ground and to have them advance through this forest right here and to hold this position. Because we can already see they already have a bunch of US Marines and light riflemen landed, and they're going to occupy this town. So yeah, there were my contours. I had a bunch of also into these buildings as well to fortify my defenses there. Going on over here, the Dr. Stone has already made some contact with the enemy, and we can see these really weird looking tanks over here kind of making their advance, and they already had secured Leonid and Sheraton and Ivan. Well, obviously that's their base, so that doesn't need to be belabored. So I decided to send my recon this direction because I wanted to see what was in this town over here, because I had no idea what the enemy's strength was at the time. And I had kept these there just in case to aid me in any attack I may have in the city. And so my contours are still making their way up into these farm buildings right here. Actually, no, that's not farm, that's a lumber mill. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Let's see. I also decide to bring in my Motor Strelki, I believe, which are in in BMP 3s, and they decided to just crush that. Yeah, so if you'd missed, I mean, just missed it. My recon unit went down because the LA AD Stinger troops that were stationed in these buildings shot him down. So I knew that my helicopters were at risk, and I decided to pull them back and wait for further reinforcements. I just love the detail in this game. It's just so cool. Over here, things are kind of quiet. Dr. Stone has some infantry in these buildings here, and has some heavier units in the recon unit over there. The enemy sent in a wild weasel, but my anti-air strangely did not fire on them. I don't know why that is. Now obviously we have some recon kind of in our front lines in these trees, looking out for the enemy. If we go to my perspective, the recon only sees these units. We don't see as much of the units as we already see. And Dr. Stone's having a dogfight with a F-15. Meanwhile, the Dr. Stone's Yak 38M is taking some fire here, and unfortunately he loses that unit. So I'm starting to gather up my forces. I bring in some more BTR 80s, and I have them split, because I originally had them in a formation too, but I have them split because I wanted to deploy them in separate ways. I believe I had one of my squads of my troops with Iglas unload in these buildings to give me further AA protection. In the back here I have T-72B1s moving up because I'm getting ready to make a push onto Gregory. I still don't know what the enemy's strength is, and that's probably a mistake I made, was I didn't use my recon units effectively. And the only recon units I had was the MI9 chopper, and that was the only ones I had for my deck. Some starfighters coming in here, and my AA decides to start firing on them. I had turned off, it's an interesting thing I had only learned recently, is that the Tunguska, along with other units, are radar anti-air, and the Tunguska's weapon systems is basically a radar cannon and Salco's missiles. Now, the radar cannon is something that can be tracked by the enemy. They can basically send jets, maybe not this one, but they can send in jets that have anti-radar missiles that can take out units, anti-aircraft units that have radar weapon systems from a distance away. So I turn those off so that they can just fire their missiles at enemy aircraft that come in and not have to worry about being destroyed. Now, over here, I send my BMPs over here because I am getting ready to move into Gregory. This BMP right here is going to be sent to this hill, and I plan to send my Motor Strelki through these trees and into the town because I wanted to flank them into the town and possibly get a foothold. If we can just go ahead and have them unload there. And I also was sending my Igla units into this forest, so that just in case the enemy sent helicopters in, I still have some anti-aircraft protection. And back here, I'm bringing another recon unit, and I had just ordered up BM-21 Grads as my artillery, and another Tunguska. There's some dogfighting going on over here. The enemy... There hasn't been a whole lot of action. It's kind of like a standstill, but obviously Dr. Stone's trying to advance with his aircraft. Or at least make some hits on their anti-air. Still gathering my forces here. I had my T-72s are here, and I'm furthering my defenses here in center. And I'm bringing up even another Tunguska. My goodness, I don't remember this part. Bringing up the higher end Tunguska, and I'm sending my MI9 to do some more reconnaissance, I think. Not quite sure what he's doing there. We're clearly in the lead at this point. We have 1,350 points to their 308. So we're doing really well just destroying their units. I should have mentioned this was a destruction mode. So I'm sending my motor Strelky into these trees, and they're advancing, but I'm going to keep my other vehicles waiting for my big push. But my Igla has already decided to engage these Super Cobra attack choppers that are just kind of sitting there. And I got both of them, which was very nice. I had also begun to fire artillery into Cheriton because I had noticed there were enemies in that area. And of course, my MI9 gets destroyed again because they had the LA-80 Stingers in the town. So I decided to make my advance. I send all my units on an attack order into the town, but I had no idea what was going on. And of course I get greeted by US Marines, and there's 57 of them in this part of the town, which is pretty crazy. But they automatically start firing their missiles at my units, and I lose my BTR-80. And my Tunguskas also begin to engage the helicopter back there. And my T-72s also engage the Marines. This was probably one reason why we never broke through, was these US Marines just held up in this town so well. And my motor Strelky that were deployed because my BMP-3 was destroyed had to escape. But they were just automatically just gunned down. And you can see Sanchez is reinforcing with 60 Mountaineers. And I'm also receiving fire from these trees on my motor Strelky trying to flank. I don't know what units those were. Maybe we can look real quick. And I send an artillery strike into the town. Now, one thing I like about the rocket artillery, particularly the BM-21 Grad, is they have a lot of missiles. They have 80 missiles. Unfortunately, though, they have a very large spread. They're not very precise. And I had to reverse order all my units, and I lost quite a bit in that charge. But my Tunguska is trying to engage the CH-118, which is just hovering there. In the meantime, I'm moving this Tunguska to provide my air defensive line, and this one is going to engage the CH-118s. I bring in 2 Mi-24 VPs because I needed some helicopter support for my troops on the front line at Gregory. Over here, Dr. Stone is making a push on these light riflemen with his KA-29 TVs, which I've never seen in action. Quite interesting looking helicopters. He's doing some work there, and he also has air support from Chief Jaguar with MiG-31s. I send another artillery barrage into Gregory. I still don't know what the effects of that were. Yeah, I didn't do too much damage. The enemy here was really entrenched. Like I said, these Marines, they had light riflemen, Stinger troops, Mountaineers, all in these buildings, and they had like, 32, 40, 52 units, like over 100 units in this town of infantry, which is very devastating to armored units, which is what my deck is mainly surrounded on. I have many infantry as well, but the main bulk of my force I would consider to be my Tunguskas, my BM-21s, and Modestrelki, and my other tanks. I have also T-80s on this deck. But so basically my role at this point is to prevent the enemy from sending any troops through Gregory. Now, my BM-21 grads began to fire into Cheriton because I had suspicion that the enemy had units on these hills and in these tree lines, so I figured an artillery barrage in that area would help. And you notice they have some anti-air because Dr. Stone's SU-25 is taking fire from a SAM. Yeah. PM-21s have quite the spread. They're not very accurate. Kipper in 9 sends his LM-6M to deal with anti-air, but the Stinger troops take fire on him. You notice it's pretty badly damaged. And he doesn't make it. I'm sending in more contour units over here, because I believe at this point, and I started taking artillery, I believe I could, if I could get the my infantry into this area, I can flank into Gregory. But my units stationed here take artillery fire. So I send also another artillery barrage into Cheriton, and I began to push once again into Gregory with my T-72s, leading the charge against US Marines once again. And this one gets stunned, and so I immediately have to order a reverse order. And more artillery from Cheriton is coming in on my Igla troops and my contours. Or Concours, excuse me, I've been saying it wrong this entire time. Unfortunately, my Tunguska gets stunned, and my T-72 suffers fire, computer reset, optical failure, and weapons jam. All not really good. I decide to send my Mi-8 TVs on a small attack run into Cheriton. And my Mi-24 VPs get stunned by the Stinger troops in the town, but they make it out alive. My Concours automatically get shot from troops in the town, and then Tony Varon just sends a bunch of these starfighters to attack my helicopters, and I immediately have to retreat, at least my Mi-24 VPs. My Mi-8 TVs, unfortunately, don't survive, as we'll see. I had lost the majority of my T-72s at this point in that one push. They were really dug in there. I decided to bring in a couple more Tunguskas because I had realized that they had helicopters in this area, and I wanted to provide further coverage. And then I noticed that there was tanks moving this way. One of my I think my Tunguska over here, and my T-72 get destroyed by Abrams. And this Fighting Falcon drops a couple bombs near my Concours. I had T-72s also over here, trying to stifle the advance of the enemy coming through this corridor, through these hills. And I sent an artillery barrage once again to Cheriton. And we come immediately into contact with CH-118s, and all my units make quick work of them. I bring in a couple more Mi-24 VPs to take care of these Abrams, and my Concours are taken down, unfortunately, and this M1A1 Abrams eventually gets destroyed. giving me 135 points, which is really good. I pull back my T-72 B1s because I had realized that enemies were beginning to push to advance, and as you notice, the C4 104 starfighters immediately try to attack and destroy one of my Mi-24 VPs and my Tunguskas. Killed one of the starfighters, but one of them got away. I bring in my Su-25Ts, I believe, to do a bombing run into Cheriton. Oh yes, I sent them on an attack run against these Leopard C1s, and then I evac ordered them immediately because I knew they had anti-aircraft assets, some SAMs in this area. So it's always good to evacuate your aircraft after an initial run, unless you're pretty confident that you can make 2 runs on a target. And of course I sent another artillery barrage into this area because I knew there was more tanks from the enemy. Leopard C1s to be precise. And I believe... no, I destroyed at least one of them and left those stunned. So my Tunguskas are coming up. I still have at least one Mi-24 that I sent to refuel, but I run out of supplies, and I brought up more T-72 B1s. I'm still holding this area and trying to prevent an advance through this area. If you notice, I mean, this would have been what I should have done is I should have positioned units on these hills, because then if any units tried to come through the road, I could get them in the crossfire, but I didn't think about that at the time. I brought in more... I'm bringing more Concours to reinforce this area. Unfortunately, Tony Varon surrenders. And at this point, we have 6,000 points, basically, to their 3,000. So we are very well in the lead at this point. I bring in more IGLA troops in BTR-80s and more supply. And I also bring another Mi-9 for recon. And that was basically victory. Now how I did personally was I got 1,325 points in kills, 1,195 points in losses, and I got 3,528 points in conquest points. So I basically got the most command points of everyone on our team. And that was actually a pretty good round. I wasn't successful in my pushes into Gregory on that side, but I had basically held the line, and I had done a genuine job at dealing with their aircraft on that side of the map, because I sent jets several times. This is a learning experience for me on how to commentate battles, so please leave comments, recommendations. I am open to constructive criticisms about my videos, my gameplay, so just let me know if if you have any strategies to recommend me, or if you notice my tactics were something I could work on. Just leave a comment. If you like the video, and I would love if you leave a subscription. So thanks for watching.